Hi Math 6-5. This is the video for lesson 101, which is scheduled for March 30th. This is the first of 3 videos. It'll be lesson 101, 102, and 103. So before we start with lesson 101, you want to go do your time test J, which is located on page 185 in your test and worksheet book, and have your parents grade that. So I'll get started with lesson 101. Lesson 101 is, I wrote down a number line. We'll review a little bit of number line for a second here, because what we're going to be doing is rounding our mixed numbers to the closest whole number. So if we look at our number line, remember a number line has arrows on the end because the numbers go on and on and on a number line. But we're looking at particularly between the numbers 4 and 5 on our number line. And so if you look about halfway, we have 4.5 marked. We can use the number line to round mixed numbers. For example, if I am given the mixed number 4 and 3/8, okay, I know that that's the whole number 4, it's past 4 by 3/8. And I know that 3/8 is less than half. The reason I know that, as a reminder, is any fraction that has the numerator is half of the denominator is equal to 1/2, okay? So I know that it would have to be 4/8 to be equal to 4 and 1/2. It would have to be like 4 and 4/8 to equal 4 and 1/2, okay? So to be right here, that's what it would have to be. But I know that 3 is less than 4, so 4 and 3/8 is probably somewhere about right here on my number line, 4 and 3/8. So I know, I look at it on my number line, and I know that 4 and 3/8, if I look at it here, is closer to 4 than it is to 5. So if I'm gonna round 4 and 3/8 to the nearest whole number, I'm going to round it to 4. I'm going to round it down, because on my number line, anything between 4 and right before 4.5 rounds down. Anything from 4.5 up to 5, you would round up, okay? So from this point here, you would round up, and from down here, before that point and back, you would round it down. Okay, so this rounds up. I probably made that a little confusing of a graphic when I wrote all that on there. It was much clearer before, but anything greater than half, or equal to, greater than or equal to half, is going to round up. Less than half is going to round down. That's what I should have said to make it very simple. Okay, so you can round these numbers, and you can, when we round numbers, we can look at and use rounding when we're estimating something. So if we have to estimate the sum of, and we have, let's see, 9 4/5 and 5 1/3. Okay, so this is my first example that I can use rounding for. If I'm going to estimate the sum, when we hear sum, we should know that we are adding. So if we're estimating the sum of 9 4/5 and 5 1/3, I need to first do my rounding. So 9 4/5, I need to round. So I need to decide, is that going to round up or is that going to round down? So I know that 4/5 is pretty close to a whole, because 5/5 is a 1 whole. So I know that this is going to round up to 10. 9 4/5 is closer to 10 than it is to 9. If you need to draw that on your number line, you would just draw you a number line out to the side, put 9, put 10. Your halfway would be 9.5. And then you would determine where 4/5 would go. The best way to determine where 4/5 would go would be to turn it into a fraction equal to half, the 4/5, which would be something over 10, which we know it would have to be 5 over 10 in order to equal 1/2. So if this is 5/10 to equal 1/2, and then 4/5 would be equal to 8/10, it would be over here. Okay, so 9 4/5 is closer to 10 than it is to 9 on the number line. You could break it out into fifths also, and you could do, here's another way, okay? 9, 10. And let's break it into, since we're dealing with fifths, let's break it into 5 tick marks. 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's the 5th one. So we know here's 9 1/5, 9 2/5, 9 3/5, 9 4/5. So it is closer to 10. So that's 2 different ways you can do it. You can compare it to half, or you can break it out into fifths. So let's go back to our original problem. That was a side note. To estimate the sum of 9 4/5 and 5 1/3. So 5 1/3, if I do my number line, it's going to be somewhere between 5 and 6, because I'm past 5 over here, but I haven't quite made it all the way to 6 on the number line. And I'm going to break it into thirds. So 1, 2, 3. So here I have 5 1/3. So it is closer on the number line to 5. So if I was going to estimate the sum of 9 4/5 and 5 1/3, I would estimate it to be 15. Okay, so we can use it to estimate sums, products. We can use it to estimate the perimeter of something. And that is one of your practice problems that I wanted to work with you. Let me swap my page around real quick. Okay, so the first one, I wanted to go through just a couple of the practice problems with you. The practice problems are on page 525. I thought I'd work a couple of them with you to help you out. So if we look at, I'm going to look at letter C. My instructions say round each mixed number to the nearest whole number. So 6 3/5 is what it tells me. So I draw my number line, and I know that if I am past 6 on the number line, but I have, because that's my whole number here, but I haven't made it all the way to 7 because I have a partial, I have a fraction of a number here. So I can know it's going to be somewhere between 6 and 7. So I'm going to divide it into fifths because that's my denominator. 1, 2, 3, 4, and here's my 5th mark. Remember, you don't count the first one, just the next 5. So 3/5. So I have 1/5, 2/5, 3/5 right there. So there I have to determine, is it closer to 7 or is it closer to 6? And this one's pretty close looking, but it is closer to 7. So 6 3/5 will round to 7. That's its nearest whole number. Okay? Because it's over halfway. Halfway, let me put halfway in a different color. Halfway would be about right there-ish. That's about halfway. I'll write that. Okay, so you can see that's about halfway. So it's not much past halfway, but it is past halfway. So it rounds up. Okay, let's do, let's do letter I together. That's a fun one. I know some of you just laughed at me and said, no, it's not, but it is. Estimate the perimeter of the rectangle in example 2. So you just have to pop up the page a little bit to this rectangle, and I'll do a rough drawing of it here because I know you've all missed my bad drawing while we've been away. So there's 5 1/4 inch on this side, and then we have 8 7/8 inch on this side. So we're supposed to estimate the perimeter. Now, if we remember, perimeter is if we walk around it. Area, like if it was a football field and I was going to go take and walk laps around the football field, I'd be walking the perimeter. But if I had to determine how much grass I needed to cover that football field, that would be the area. And the area is length times width. But in this instance, we're doing perimeter. So with our rectangle, we know that if this side is 5 1/4, this side's 5 1/4. If 8 7/8 is over here, it's also 8 7/8 over here. So we're gonna estimate these numbers rather than try to get a precise answer. It says we can estimate. So we're gonna do that. So let's start with 5 1/4. You can draw your number line. It's gonna be between 5 and 6. Break it into fourths and put your dot on 1/4. And you know that 5 1/4 is gonna estimate over to 5. I'll write that over here. Then our other number is 8 7/8. If you draw your number line, you'll have 8, because it's past 8, but it's not made it all the way to 9, and you break it into 8 pieces. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm supposed to go to 7, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Is it closer to 8 or 9? The answer is it's closer to 9. So that's going to go to 9. So now for my perimeter, I'm just going to add up my estimated answers. So we know that's this side would be 9 plus 5 plus 9 plus 5. And when we do that, we should get 28 inches. And that is your answer. Okay? So hopefully that helps with working a couple of the practice problems. And if you have any questions, just have your parents give me a call or text or email, whichever works best for you guys. And there'll be 2 more videos coming for Monday.